Welcome to the Spa Girls podcast, the self-publishing podcast for authors. You're in the right place for the best writing, marketing, and publishing advice, plus interviews with industry experts and best-selling authors. I'm Cheryl Phipps.
I'm Shah Barrett.
I'm Wendy Valla.
And I'm Trudy J. Welcome. Hello,
Hi.
everyone.
All back together.
We're all here. We're all together.
Back together again.
The Beatles are back together.
It feels like forever, actually. I don't know. 3 weeks of holiday, and suddenly I'm like, I don't even know my own name.
Shah was away for like 17 years.
And some of us are back together even closer, aren't we?
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
She's in my office and I'm up in my bedroom. Work that one out.
Spot the switch backgrounds.
So, just to confuse people.
Today,
just to confuse people.
Dun, dun, dun.
So today we thought we would talk a little bit about branding for authors, and maybe like if you haven't thought about branding yet, you're a baby author, then this will be an awesome start for you to kind of go through and start thinking about it. And if you've got your brand in place already, it's a good opportunity to go and have a look at it again, because our brands are always evolving and moving and changing, and we should keep up with that. Don't just let it sit and assume that it's fine and it's doesn't need an update, basically.
I think it's a really good idea actually to revisit most of the things we do as an author, and I think we've been trying to do that just lately, all of us. So I think this is a really good one for people to take stock of what they're actually putting up there about their work.
Yeah. So that's very, very true. So let's start at the beginning. What is branding and why do we need it? So I'm going to lean on Shah to answer that one for us.
Do that.
So I would describe your brand, your author brand, as your promise to the reader. It's what they can expect from you, not just in terms of your books, but in terms of your colors, your visual elements. It's like your front shop window. Think of you as your brand as kind of your Macy's display window or whatever.
So you went straight for Macy's. I went for the Golden Arches at McDonald's.
Shows
how our minds work.
No,
right?
No. I'm thinking, if you walk past Macy's, or you go past Tiffany or Victoria's Secret, immediately from the shop window what you're going to get inside.
And not for the shop window, but as soon as you say those three names, I know exactly what is in those three stores, and I know exactly what the feel is going to be and how I'm going to, like all
and
of
your
those
colours.
things.
You think of your Tiffany blue, you think of the Victoria's Secret with the black and the mirrors and the pink, and that's the brand. It's the author brand. It's how readers perceive you. And
I think that's an interesting thing. It's the perception of the readers. It's almost. You talked about initially as a reader promise, I think, or what but it's also there, like you might be sending out signals to the readers that you don't even know that you're sending out, and that is still part of your brand.
It's how they perceive you.
If you think of those two different aspects that Shah and Wendy were saying, where Shah was going for the glitter and the greatness, and Wendy was going for the accessibility, I think, and the personal approach. And I think those in themselves are two very clear brands. And I think how do you want to be perceived? How do you want people to look at you? And do you want your products for people to feel like that they are accessible and that they are something that they truly desire?
And I mean, love them or hate them, but Jeff Bezos says a brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room.
It's true. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so why is it important then? Why do we care what people say about us when we're not in the room? Why do we care what the readers perceive about us? Like, what does that matter to us? Why?
I think they need to be able to, I think you want them to conjure up a picture of what they're going to get. Like it's in their minds, it's like they know they're going to see the way you're. Like for me, when they look at my historical brand, they know that my work name is always written the same. My covers have the same colors. They know that I'm going to get the same feel. So I think it's an experience. A brand is an experience. That's what I think. What is Shah doing rattling there?
Oh, I'm sorry.
A lot of rattling going. Yeah, a lot of rustling going on there.
I'm sorry.
So it's not just, but you think, Wendy, like, okay, so someone reads a Wendy Vella book, they know that they're going to get a certain kind of experience. They know that they're going to, if they've read
is that brand as well?
Yeah,
it's
like
not
that.
just visual, right?
Yeah.
No, it's not just visual at all.
No,
And
no.
it comes down, it's also like the cost of your books, like they know how much they're going to be, they know how long they're going to be, they know that there's going to be a romance in it, they know that they're going to, you know, there's even types of characters that you tend to write will be very similar, and your tone and your style, and that is part of your brand, like even without us really realizing it, that is all part of the perception of us as authors. From
like Shah said, the expectation that they're going to get a happy ever after in a Wendy Vella book, or even a Lani Blake book.
So you think of someone like Stephen King, we know exactly what kind of book we're going to get. Stephen King versus Nora Roberts, right? That is a brand. That is we know that because of their branding, not just
And I would say, why is it important? Well, if you're wanting to make money, it's important. Like, that's the bottom line. You know, if readers if they can't identify you or with you, then you're not going to make money. You're not going to sell books if you haven't got a good author brand. So,
but it's not just,
they don't want a surprise, right? They don't want a surprise.
As much as they may think they do, they don't.
Yeah. I mean, we might want to reinvent the wheel sometimes because we're over having the same brand, but the point is our brand is who we are. People don't want to go to your page and pick up one of your books, and it can be completely the opposite to what they think it's going to be.
Yeah, exactly. Like when Nora Roberts wrote those fantasy books, and there was a lot of backlash about that because Nora Roberts is known for romance of a certain style, and then she writes these other books that are
J.K. Rowling.
J.K. Rowling.
Exactly. Romance.
Yeah, the Richard.
And it's also a point that Nora has two author brands. So there's Nora Roberts and there's J.D. Robb, and for a good reason. So it is, it is absolutely vital. So there's absolutely vital.
There's a couple other things I wanted to mention, and I think the branding aspect is not. It's also about loyalty and trust, and that leads on to the money. Like Shah's right, it is about, you know, selling books, but you do a brand because you want to create loyalty and trust with your readers. And if it's all over the show, and your one book is a zombie apocalyptic novel and the next one is a sweet romance, that's not a cohesive brand. And if you're posting on TikTok and you're telling them the intimate details of your sex life with your husband, and you're posting over you know, on Facebook about
kittens and puppies,
your Amish romance,
your Amish romance or something, that is not a cohesive brand, you know. So
exactly,
your branding is about creating a cohesiveness, a thing across across everything, so that your readers will go, I can trust this person, I know and understand this person, and I can be loyal to them because, and a connection to them, right? Like it's a connection to those readers.
So that's that whole thing too, I think, about names, you know, like writing 3 or 4 genres under one name, sometimes it's better to split them up because you're actually diluting your brand.
That's what you did, right?
That's what I began. It's taken me a while, but it's actually now bearing fruit because my Lani Blake brand that was a tongue twister. It's very different from the Wendy Vella brand in every way. The way I write the names on the cover, everything. And now being able to do that, I'm actually targeting a different audience through my brand. It's different completely. And shares the same with C.A. Phipps and Cheryl Phipps, you know, very different brands. You know, and that's something you have to really think about if you are going to write something different.
And I think Trudy just mentioned the word connection, and I think and cohesiveness, and I think there's the 3 C's. If you take nothing else away from this podcast, it's the 3 C's, which is consistent. You've got to be consistent across your platforms, and by platforms I'm talking social media, your website, your newsletter, how your author name is written on your book cover. Cohesive, consistent, and connection. Think of the 3 C's.
Yeah. That is awesome. 3 C's. I'm going to have to put that in our title or something. We're going to change this whole topic. And also, so being consistent and knowing what your brand is also helps you make decisions, right? Like, so if you're thinking, oh, should I post this post? And I was like, well, if it doesn't fit with the rest of your brand, easy decision there, right? Like, don't do it. Or should
I go in this maybe author anthology? You know, does this fit, or is it like it might be a cool opportunity, but actually does it work for my author brand?
Should I write sweet romance and then go onto TikTok and do raunchy videos? It's just it's a non-connection, and I think we all want to try
disconnect.
everything. The disconnect, sorry, that non-connection disconnect was so much better. Sweet. But I think that we all want to try everything, but not everything will stick. Some things just, and that's a real learning curve, and it's been that for me. I wanted to do all the things all the time.
I have a romantic suspense that sits all alone on my website, and I probably should take it down, but it's kind of like the first book I ever wrote, and it's just
That's your baby.
It's fine, but it doesn't sell anything because it's not what I write as a rule.
That's right. That's right.
So
even though you write cozy mysteries, I actually think that's a really good example, because you could say that they both have suspense elements and mystery elements, but it's completely different from your cozy mystery book. So
and I had a comment actually from one of my reviewers that I just branched out this year into paranormal cozy mysteries, and because I had an opportunity and I decided to run with it. It is a little bit of separation with my brand, but they're actually doing quite well. But this reviewer, she said, no, I won't review anything paranormal. And that is something that you really have to think about. If you're going to keep, even a genre, but split it into subgenres, keep them on the one platform, because, on your,
I agree.
Your name.
So how do you work out your author brand? How do you work it out? What do you do? What are the first steps?
Well, I think the first step is, what are you writing? So, for example, if you're writing, like Cheryl was saying, paranormal cozies, then you've got to think about what would readers think about those paranormal cozies, and what would they expect. So they would expect, paranormal elements, and they would expect quite bright colours. So then that flows on to the colours that you would use in your graphics and in your images, and you think about that. You think about the typefaces, so you would have a consistent look across your covers, but also you think about your author name, and so what's on your website with those, what's on your newsletter, that kind of thing. That's a place to start. And I also want to point out, like, authors, we take things so personally, but your author brand isn't necessarily you. C.A. Phipps, the cozy mystery writer, is not Cheryl. Cheryl is a far more multifaceted, dimensional, amazing creature. But she doesn't have to put it all out there for C.A. Phipps, right? So it's almost like a condensed version down of the author persona. And you can be anybody you want to be. If you're writing under a pen name, I mean, I'm not saying lie in your bio, but you would write your bio along the lines of, if you're a paranormal cozy writer, about how you love mysteries and you love, you spend your time in a coffee shop, keep it consistent. You don't say, I don't know,
I like kittens.
Out there writing, filming slasher movies or something on the weekends. You write your bio. Everything comes down to those 3 C's: connection, cohesiveness, consistency. So you want to keep it all consistent. So that's where
not be generic. This is where a place where I think people
don't
fall down.
try and please all the people all the time.
It's
so
like
true. Mark a place in the sand, and that is where you are, because being niche is actually going to get you more visibility and more everything than,
and it's easy for people to recognize it.
It's like, you look out there, the authors that are like, I was just thinking, the authors that I like and that I read a lot of. So for example, Penny Reid is one that I really love, and I what
comes to mind with Penny Reid is immediately humor, sort of smart, nerdy kind of romance. That's Penny Reid. And how do I know that without ever having read a Penny Reid book? Because that's what I recognize as her author brand.
That's her author brand. And she's like, smart romance is literally her tagline, I think. It was, I don't know if it still is, haven't looked in a while, and she has very similar, the covers were all very similar, and the everything fits within that persona of Penny Reid being this kind of smart, quirky, funny author who has smart, quirky, funny characters, and that all fits together. And it's with, and like Shah says, she's never read one of her books, and she knows that. That's good branding, right?
Really good.
So have a look at maybe one of your favorite authors, and just have a look at how they're doing it, and just,
I would say actually look at your 5, the 5 authors that you really love, and think about what is their brand. And I think that's, if you're starting from scratch, that's a good place to start. And you'll start, and maybe just keep a note. Okay, so here's Penny Reid, or here's Nora Roberts, or here's, usually some of the bigger names, whether indie or trad, have got a stronger brand just because there's more out there to look at, right?
Yeah.
And you'll start seeing, and I think that will give you a feel for the feel of an author brand. It will give you, oh, okay, right, so this is what I expect from so and so. So how does she convey that quirkiness? Well, she's got kind of different covers, like they're slightly left of center covers,
like those cross stitch covers. I don't think she's got the cross stitch covers anymore, but when they first came out, those books had cross stitch covers. It was just the weirdest thing ever, but I thought it was awesome because it was these
because they fitted with her, because frankly they're slightly weird books. So
Yeah,
exactly.
So, and I think you can also add in like you're talking about, go with the genre first, say like with cozy mystery, and definitely the genre plays an important part in it. But I also think you can kind of add or figure out for yourself what element of yourself is a part of that and what makes you slightly different within that. And I think that will help you get a stronger brand.
Nice.
So cozy mystery. Well, Cheryl knows that she does the culinary and the and it's very family orientated because that's Cheryl, and there's certain values that she has that she puts into her books, and I think all of that rolled up together becomes part of the brand, and maybe a good idea just to sit down with yourself and kind of go, okay, so what are some of the values maybe that are consistent across all the books that I write or want to write, and within the genre, like it's kind of like a Venn diagram of the genre you're writing in plus the things that you want to say or be a part of your brand.
And I think this is where you could almost like DIY your own or paint by numbers your own personality. You can pick things. You don't have to again represent everything. The other thing I would say too is if you're writing romance, it's important, I think, to convey heat level. So that's important as well, whether it's mid spice, no spice, oodles of spice. I think that's and that will also dictate not just your covers but also your colors that you use, that kind of thing. And again, going back to people, maybe if you're writing really high heat menage, for example, you look at those writers in there and you'll see a commonality, which I'm not saying you copy, but you recognize that often they're darker. They often use a lot of black and whites. They often use a lot of reds. Like there's a depth to the color, whereas if you're writing something sweeter, often the tones of the colors, it's not even about the colors themselves, but the tones are lighter. So it's that kind of thing, and it is a learned skill, and I think once you start paying attention to it, you get better at recognizing it.
I think when you look at genres of the whole, if you were talking about romantic comedies and you've got really bright in your face colors, and then you're talking about sweet romance and they're so soft, it's kind of obvious, isn't it, really? But especially when you put several of those books together, you can see even if the pictures are different
and style of the covers, everything's different.
The wording,
and
the way
right
people
wording.
talk, everything. It's
and
quite
actually
funny.
the fonts.
Fonts is massive, right?
Fonts are huge,
And another tip would be to look at cover designers' portfolios on their websites, and they will have listed, romantic suspense or whatever, and you can see and I'm not just talking about looking at them for the cover's sake, but you can get a sense of what the heat level is, what the the intensity, if you like, of the drama and that kind of thing. And that can be another way of doing it as well, is looking at how other people categorize things. But that's just, the visual element is one of it, but it's a really important one because that's what we see first, and that's how readers are first approaching you when they look at your whatever retailers you're on. They're looking at a 1-inch square usually on their phone, which is your book cover, but that's how they're seeing you. It is visual. That is very visual, and we are visual creatures. That's how we pick up things first.
There's other things around that we don't even realize are a part of the branding that I think are actually telling readers something that is part of that perception they have of us as authors. And that's, so some of it is things like the pricing, like,
Yes,
is this a $7.99 book that is high priced, but we're willing to pay it because we love this author? Or is this a 99-cent book that we kind of just grab because it's on a special deal? And does this author have lots of 99-cent books or free books? And are we, and is this author wide or in KU? I even think that can be a part of the branding, because
how often are they publishing as part of the brand as well? Are you a once a monther, or are you twice a year? You know, maybe longer books.
And the look and the feel and the tone of a person who's putting out 2 books a year might be different to how someone who's putting out 12 books a year will come across. And I feel like there's almost like an energy around publishing lots of books that's different to someone who's got that longer time between books, that they might have to do different things to kind of, I don't know,
like they're creating the interest and the, you know, like, oh, we're so looking forward to it, even though it's a year out. When it comes out, bam, I'm in, you know.
I think that also the one shoe fits all. It's just it's not you know, you will always be very different from someone who writes the same as you. But what we're saying is you need to see what other people are doing and then do your slant on it. Like, you know, I'm very different from other historical writers. You know, I'm very family orientated. I can't write descriptions about scenery for anybody's business, but I do dialogue well, you know, like, so whereas I'm very different from, say, Colette Cameron, who is different again from me, who, you know, there's so many, but that, you know, when you look at my books, that the historical romances, you look at hers, the exact same thing. But again, my brand is very different. And I think that's the thing, to keep it. Consistency is massive. But Facebook or whatever socials you're on, your website, they've got to know when they look that they're getting exactly, they know Wendy Valla.
And I think too, I mean, it's changed slightly now, but when you very first started, Wendy, with your Regencies, we had your author name as a PNG, which is a image file format that has a transparent background, and the cover designer, we got that as separate, and that same author PNG type name treatment is on all of those covers. So even the cover image and the title change, but you see Wendy Valla, and if you look at Wendy Valla's author page, you'll see that right away across. And that's really important, I think, particularly when you're starting out, is to have that till you've got like a name. That's a really good way of keeping it very consistent and very recognizable.
I remember listening to Bella Andre talk once, and I mean, there's years and years and years ago, like at RWA, and she was someone was talking about it, because I think often the author name was little down the bottom, and then the title was big, and she'd done the opposite. She'd made her name big, and I think she did that from even when she was a no-name author. She was just, my name is the most important. I don't, you know, I want them to know that they're reading my book rather than know the title of the book. That's what's important. And so for her, that was a piece of branding that she knew that she was going to do right from the beginning, so that people would know they were writing a Bella Andre book. So it's just even little things like that, thinking through all those kinds of things.
And I would also, I think it's absolutely, particularly if you've got, I mean, as we said before, recognizing these things is a learned skill, but some people are just not graphically minded, and that's absolutely fine. And so I would say, if you can, get professional help with it, particularly when you're starting out. I think it's worthwhile getting your, you know, professionally designed, certainly your social media and certainly your website image, you know, header, or however you're looking, just get some help on that, because it's hard enough starting out with everything looking like a dog's breakfast, frankly. So
starting
help
right,
yourself out.
Starting right, if you have to spend the little resources you've got on getting it set up right first is important.
And talk to other authors as well. There's plenty of different Facebook groups out there. You're not looking for a mass consensus. What you're looking for are people that understand your genre, that would say that how this looks, and how your bio is written is really important as well. That's part of the author brand too. It's what you say in there, but it's also how you say it. Do you say it in third person? Do you say it in first person joking? If you're writing horror books, do you write something that's super funny? No, you don't. You write something
In
a
case
little
you were
dark,
wondering.
a little dark about your collection of, I don't know, brains in
Skulls.
bottles or something. I don't know.
Yeah. And all of it, and even down to how you interact with readers on social media. I
Yes.
think,
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
I know
yeah.
some authors will give you all of their personal, private, you can tell how I feel about that, their personal information about angst that they're going through or whatever, and
Every
often
sickness.
and often that is part of their brand, because
It
maybe
is,
they've got
it's
Your
really
readers love it.
angst-filled books that are,
Yeah.
so they're attracting the kind of readers who
Mm.
want to read their
Mm.
angst-filled books. So it's perfect. It's like, it's genius work to do that. Whereas if you're another author who's not, A, you don't want to do that, or B, you don't have those kinds of books, maybe, then it's okay to kind of dial back on that. And
Yeah.
even so, that is, and or swearing.
I think it's a conscious choice. Yeah, exactly.
Make it
the language you
a
use and what you say is part of your author brand, whether you like it or not,
Yeah.
right?
I think that's an important thing to say, is make it a conscious choice. Don't do it accidentally or off, like, just like, you want to be in charge of the perception that your readers have of you. So think about it through all of these different things. That's why having a tagline might help. Like, I think, or a paragraph that kind of says, this is who I am as an author. And then you can use that to think about how you want to talk on Facebook. An example of someone who, like KF Breen, swears like a trooper on her Facebook group. And that's because she writes the kind of books that are, people love it, like they and that's who she is, and she's and her books are very similar to how she is on the,
she owns it.
so she owns it, right? And it's not going to appeal to everyone, and then and as soon as someone comes onto that Facebook and sees her swearing and doing the stuff, if it's not for them, they leave.
They go,
which is what you want.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's the whole purpose, because you don't want them reading your books full of swear words and raunchy situations, because if they're going to be scared off with a bit of, so that's perfect.
And that's exactly like, I don't swear in my historicals, but I do in my contemporaries. And I have people in my reader group from historicals who hate swearing. Absolutely. Like, they just hate it. So, and that's, again, with the splitting the name up, because they're just not going to ever, there's going to be a disconnect there between the readers. So it's everything. I do like the idea of trying to think about that in terms of a tagline, because I think that helps distill what you're trying to do, and trying to incorporate. So if it's romance, the heat level somehow. I mean, this doesn't have to be an official tagline, even just something that helps you. So the heat level, the genre you're writing in, and then something to kind of indicate maybe what's the quirkiness that's you. If you can do all of that in a tagline, you're amazing. But,
absolutely. I mean, and I think you're right, and I'm just thinking, the first one came to mind, and it's nothing that any of us write, but hot cowboys in Australia, right? So for me, if I said the tagline hot cowboys in Australia, so I'm thinking on the author website you would have pictures of shirtless dudes with cowboy hats on, astride horses, jeans. You would have probably oranges and yellows for Australia, which is, what I immediately think of there, with the sort of the outbacky images, and, so it kind of builds from that. But tagline's good, whether you use it or not, that's fine. But for your own devices, I think it's a good idea.
I think it's good when you're starting out too.
Definitely.
When people know you more, it's not such a big deal. But when you're starting out, people are not going to get any surprises.
And
if
you've started, sorry, go share.
I'm probably going to say the same thing. That said, you can actually change at any time. If it's not working, or just actually even just tweaking sometimes, brighten it or darken it, or change the wording, or whatever. But it's nice to keep moving forward, I think.
I mean, what we're saying here is to give you a good start with this, or a good place to review. We're not saying that you have to be Susie author writing hot cowboys in Australia for the rest of your life. Like, this is that's an author persona.
I mean, I've gone through I've gone through about 3 or 4 website complete changes over the time.
Don't try this at home.
I'm just thinking,
not as I do.
If you had Australia as your background, and then suddenly you decided you wanted to write, US cowboy romances, then you could just change it. Like, I'm not. The other thing I want to people to think about, or I think you should think about, is values. And I don't mean in a kind of moralistic way or in a I'm going to get on my high horse kind of way. I'm just like, like, are you someone for whom family is important and you write about family? Or are you someone who thinks that that murdering people is whatever, but like it's just think through.
You might like crime stories.
Are you writing mystery, and is there a value? What is the value here? That maybe there's always a happy ending, they'll always figure out who did
solving
it
the crime,
solving the crime, which is obviously has to happen in a mystery, but is there something within that I can't think of right off the top of my head?
If you're a really big romantic and it's just who you are, you have to have a happy ending,
is that a big value for you? Or are you trying to inspire people? Are you trying to motivate them? What is it that's kind of one of those core things for you? Because then you can kind of work out from that, and then go, okay, if I'm a paranormal romance author and my core value is I need family
every day, I mean,
but family and romance, but I want to do it within the paranormal lens, then how do I do that? I create a vampire family that are really connected to each other and are really bonded together, and or something like that. You can use that kind of value system to kind of help you create not only what you're writing, but how your whole brand around it. And that can be helpful too if you're struggling, I guess, to figure out what it is you're trying to do.
What is it that is part of you that you want to portray into your author brand?
Equally, I would argue that you can write without a single part of you necessarily being part of your authher brand. Now, obviously, you're writing the books,
in your book.
It will come across, but there's a lot.
I think you want to be authentic, though, don't you?
I do. I know where you're coming from, and
you could create the persona, is what you're saying.
Create the persona, and you can be the author version of what you want,
right? So many do. We've met writers who are nothing like their books, and you meet them and you go, "Wow, I wasn't expecting that." In a good way,
a bubbly personality that writes dark.
Maybe it's a personality thing. Like maybe if for me, I would need to feel connected to my brand and my writing, because it's such a big part of who I am and what I'm doing. But if you're someone who's got like four different pen names and each one is very different, then you can't.
Or maybe you're working in an industry where perhaps romance writing is or horror writing or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of people writing things that are writing as well that is not something that they particularly want to share with the other.
They're anonymous, aren't they, to the world?
But when I'm talking about sharing stuff, I don't mean personal details. I'm talking about very generic kind of the values that, and I think without really even meaning to, unless you're a highly skilled author, I think you will put a very similar storylines together, and you won't write the like if you hate friends to lovers like I do, I couldn't ever imagine writing a friends to lovers book, because it's just
I would argue that you could, because you're a good writer.
No,
but
I wouldn't. I'd hate
just an example of how
but I think romance is different to many genres, because I mean, I don't want to think of Stephen King doing terrible things to animals and cars, and he's probably a decent guy.
So,
probably. I mean, we don't know for sure.
But like romance authors, I think you'd like that. You like that about life, don't you? You like that there's somebody for everybody, and you're going to have a happy ending.
I think so. I think so. But I mean, same thing if you're writing mysteries, you want that sense of justice. That sort of as an author, I think.
So there are generic things that you can, and if you are feeling like it's not representative of you, I guess you could say there's certain things that would be representative of a brand within the mystery world.
Exactly.
Created
That's
around
what you would expect. Absolutely. And it flows on to like your author picture. You don't necessarily have to use yourself. It's keep it consistent. Again, going back to the consistent and the cohesiveness. It's also what you write in your newsletters. So same thing as Wendy was saying about swearing like a trooper, or no, Trudy was saying Cave Breen swearing like a trooper. I imagine she does that in her newsletters as well, right? She's not going to suddenly start posting biblical quotes in there and talking about how she picks spring flowers every day. So sorry,
they're angry biblical quotes and talking about slaying and whatever.
Yeah, possibly we don't need to go down that track.
But the flowers of thistles.
So it's all of that kind of thing as well. So I think it's just keep the word consistent in mind. Honestly, that's the most important
especially
thing.
in your newsletter, to be fair, you know. I
Yeah.
mean, I know there's certain authors, these newsletters I love to get.
Yeah.
I know what's going to be in them, and it's like when I get mine out, I always get email replies back, "Oh, you made me laugh today."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what's interesting is sometimes we fear or don't like the idea of consistency. Like we want to write a completely different book, or we want to write, we want to do something different. Yeah, we want to do something different in our newsletter.
Reinvent the wheel.
And we don't really realize that actually that's what our readers want from us.
Isn't that
like,
the truth?
When I want a certain type of book, I will go to a certain author because I know that author will give it to me. And sometimes I burn myself out on that particular style of book, so I'll look for another. And but I know exactly where to get it from because I have
different when you're the person writing it, right?
Yeah,
it's so different. And I remember Bella Andre, when she came to New Zealand, and she said, I never get bored. I never get bored with my books. And I was thinking, oh, please, I want to be like you, because sometimes I want to write a romance instead of a cozy mystery, because maybe I'm not bored, but, you know, like maybe I just want to get out of that headspace.
Yeah.
But clearly she loves what she does. And she, you know, it's just, that's awesome.
It's hard work. Sign me up for some of that.
Yeah.
But again, we're all different, right?
Yes.
We're all different. And I think, you know, as we've said before, what Trudy said about authenticity, and so if authenticity is feeling restless like that, then there are ways to work with that as well, you know.
Do you know another author that comes to mind that is Stephanie Holmes, and we've had her on the show, we've talked to her, she's awesome, you should go check her out. But she has this brand that's quite quirky, and lots of skulls are involved, and she's, you know, she's I don't know how
very Lovecraftian. She's a big Lovecraft fan.
Thank you. Yes. And she has written contemporary romance. She's written contemporary bully romances, and she's also got a lot of paranormal kind of stuff
and
as well.
reverse harem as well.
Reverse harem. But the thing is that across the board, like she's got, but across the board, she tends to have that same a very similar feel to her books, and no matter the genre. And I think that she has very consciously tried to promote that and tried to have them like very similar in feel and tone. And I think you can kind of do that, although I think you will also lose some of your readers across the genres.
It's doable, but is it ideal?
It's probably not ideal, but she's done that so that she can kind of maybe write the different genres that she wants to write. And that's so that's another one that springs to mind is Jane Ann Crean's also writing as Jane Cass, although and when I say this, she's got
Amanda
different names. Amanda Quick, and we all know that those are different. Yeah, no, they're not branded the same, are they? Okay, so forget that. But she's a good example of an author doing 3 different brands. But and me as a reader, I won't read the futuristic romance that she writes under Jane Castle. I can't remember.
Neither will I, but I'll read. I lap up her Amanda Quick.
Same. So it just goes to show maybe you need to think about your branding and how it's all put across in that way. I can't think of another author who writes, except for the historical writers that do contemporary romance,
like a Lisa Kleypas.
Yeah, those ones who kind of had, but then I think, Wendy, you've discovered that actually it's much better to have yours separated, and you're now doing way better with the contemporaries than because of that. So,
I mean, I'm not Lisa Kleypas, so
no, but
not yet.
We're not. We're heading there. So
you don't need to be.
I'm not even Jane Ann Grants, but you know, no, it's definitely made a difference. You know, like because the way I portray Lani as opposed to Wendy is very different.
Yeah,
and my readers are very different. In my reader group for Wendy, I actually went in there and said, hey, I don't know if any of you guys, I thought they all knew that I was Lani. And so I posted a post and said, Lani's got a new book, and they're like, who? Who now? And I was
Why didn't we know?
No, and then someone's like, what? Who is this? You know, and I'm like, whoops, my bad, I didn't tell you. But you know, like that's how different.
But you did. But
you get new
I think
readers,
we
right?
assume that people aren't coming on all the time, and they do.
You know? Forget, you know, and it's quite funny when someone turns around and go, well, what? You know, it's like, sorry,
bonus.
Bonus.
Exactly. I just wanted to, so we've talked about Steph Holmes, I think, so we're going to put links to 3 people's, so I'm referring you to their websites. not just to look at their website, but you can also, it's the brand is screaming at you. So that's, I think they're great examples. So Steph Holmes is one of, as Trudy said, is kind of a wide range of different genres, but it's that quirkiness, and I would call it sort of goth quirk, smart, that's sort of
smart,
there.
gothic.
Have a look. The lovely Honey Phillips, who writes science fiction, romance, who's been on our podcast, have a look at her website. She's got, like, right at the front, Honey Phillips writes steamy science fiction stories about hot alien warriors and the human women they can't resist. Like, from abductions to invasions, the ride might be rough, but the ending always satisfies. I mean, how freaking awesome is that?
Yeah, and that gives you exactly, you know exactly what that is.
But you look at her website, and it's what you would expect. So right at the front, you've got this really alien landscape. It's yellow, so obviously honey, and it's got the oranges and the yellows, and the text is an orange, and then you've got her book covers that are bright and science fiction-y, but in her tagline under her name, though, is super sweet and utterly filthy. And so you know that you're going to get a romance with lots of feels, but lots of hot stuff as well. So, you know, and then she's got a heart and flames behind it, so have a look at Honey Phillips, is a really good author. And another author that we've had on the podcast, complete contrast to the visual look of Honey's, is Anika Martin. And she writes, as Anika Martin is kind of romantic comedies. And you look at her, again, look at her covers, but then you look at her website, and she's got, like, the font treatment of her name is kind of quirky and what you would expect to see on a rom-com cover. And you've got the very clean looking, very white background, but then you've got these really bright rom-com graphic covers.
She does do an interesting contrast, though, in Anika Martin, is she has the rom-coms, which I love and are among my favorite books, and then she has the sexy bank robbers series, which is like a full-on sex every 5 minutes kind of series. I know. It's the girl and how many guys? I think it's 4 guys and 3 guys at least, and so what's that reverse harem, and it's just full on, and it's very different, but she does the same kind of cover treatments and stuff for those books. So it's an interesting kind of
very interesting, and the thing is, there's no one right way, but it's consistent. So when you look across,
we always say it, right? Do your research. The people you love to read and you want to be like are the ones that you need to follow. Kate Nolan's another one who has an amazing tagline.
That's true. I think that's important.
There are so many out there who are brilliant. So do your research. And look, you know, I mean, there are some amazing websites out there and some amazing authors who just stay in their lane. And that, I think, when you're starting out, staying in your lane is important.
And we're going right back, circling right back. Why is it important? And I think it is, self-publishing is no longer the Wild West. It is now it's now matured. And so to swim with the fishes, you've got to be a well-defined fish, right? You know, and you know where you're swimming to, and you know where you want to swim to, and you can see the big fishes there, so you're going to kind of go down that particular part of the lake or the pond or the sea or whatever. And that is why it's important now, even more so, because there's a lot of competition. And so you want to just really define your brand and so people, you know, you hold your own in the competition.
Yeah, absolutely. So you need to do your homework. And I think that's
all right.
I think it's a good place to finish. Actually. I think it's a great place to finish.
Do your homework. Okay, stop this podcast recording right now and go look up all the authors.
Go look at the show notes, and you'll see the links to those authors I put in there if you want a place to start. Another place to start is to join us at patreon.com/Spargirls podcast, where for $10 a month you can join our self-publishing mastermind group, where we talk all things publishing, including marketing and including this kind of thing. If you want to run your brand by us, or if you want to get some tips and things, that's the place to do it.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, we're at spargirlspodcast.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Shah. Well, thank you all for listening to another episode of the Spa Girls podcast. We'll be back again next week with another episode, but for now, farewell.
Bye.